Hey, what is going on? This is Ricardo of the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we are live. We're about to get started with the DRT, the Dispatchers Roundtable. We are back for round 30. I almost said number 3. Nope, there's a 0 on that. 30, number 30. Whew, holy cow. There's been a lot of them that we've been doing. But first, as always, a word from our sponsors.
At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Here in Greenville County, we have 8 different places where a 911 call can be answered.
It is the largest county in South Carolina. It's a challenge.
The type of information that a telecommunicator gets from Radius Plus is location-based technology. You can see where the caller is, if they have a medical issue, if they speak a different language. They're immediately able to text to that caller in their native language. It reduces response times because it immediately gets first responders where they need to be.
Carbine, it's multimedia. You can get text, translate to whatever language, getting away with the legacy equipment and going into a cloud-based solution.
It's the first time in U.S. history that we have an EZNet through cloud-native call handling.
As a police officer, to have the victim go video, that's unheard of.
You're getting upgrades every month, not every year.
To schedule your free Carbine demo, please visit carbine.com/WTT.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Oh yeah, once again, welcome back. This is the Dispatchers Roundtable, round 30. Not 3, round 30, 30. And man, there's honestly, when I first started doing the Dispatchers Roundtable, the very first version of the Dispatchers Roundtable was back in 2014. And I believe it was episode 43 of the Within the Trenches podcast. It was the first time that that I had ever done this. This was just an idea to bring people on and share opinions and have discussions on different topics that had to do with 911. Now, again, this was in 2014. And even though it doesn't seem that long ago, it's it's 2014. The internet was good, but not as good as it is now. So streaming, there were only a couple platforms out there that were doing it. And at that time, it was Google Hangouts on air is what it was called. So if you look back, there's a video up there. It was myself, Gary Allen, and a dispatcher, I believe, was out of Arizona. And that person's webcam, their internet was bad. It was really bad and just kept cutting out. But Gary's, fortunately, was still good. So we were able to get that on there. The other person ended up having to drop off, but that was the earliest version of what is now the Dispatchers Roundtable, where we were just discussing and sharing stories. And just a big shout out to the late Gary Allen. Good friend and a gentleman who helped me out in the beginning when I was starting to do Within the Trenches podcast and everything that I do now. I will never forget you, my friend. But here we are. with the Dispatchers Roundtable, Round 30. And the topic for today is going to be the keys to successfully rolling out new public safety technologies. This live broadcast has been sponsored by InDigital Rapid Deploy as well as Carbine, and this is an exclusive Carbine Dispatchers Roundtable for this topic. Shout out to patrons as always. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if it wasn't for all of you, but especially those that are here now, watching, listening, sharing, supporting, all of it. So thank you so very much. If you have any comments or questions or even roll call, throw it in the comments here, and we will make sure to read those and go through them, because there was a lot of comments on social media when I had asked, what are some of your keys, like what are some of your thoughts when it comes to implementing new technology into your center, into your ECC. So we're going to be going through a lot of things here. And again, we're going to be having some fun. So make sure to share this broadcast on your feed, as well as to your favorite dispatch page. And also make sure to throw in some reactions and all. So thank you, as always, for all of it. I appreciate it more than you know. So my first guest here today is John Oliver, not John Oliver from HBO. There's no relation from what I was told. But we got John Oliver, project manager with Carbine. Hello.
Hi, Ricardo. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Good. I'm doing fabulous. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh no, it's a pleasure. It's going to be good, especially to learn a little bit more about you as well. I got
Sure.
a little bit of notes and everything from some email exchanges, but it'll be good to hear it from you about
Sure.
where you come from and everything. And we'll get to that here in just a moment. But next we have my good friend Rob Big Mac Mcmullen. What is going on, sir? There he is. I can't hear you, man. What did you do? It's probably the background. Nope. Still nothing. You know what's funny is, like, I can hear you clicking. Yeah, man. I don't know. This is what's fun about being live. Oh, here's Roxy. Rob definitely does not live there.
What the hell?
Oh, there he is. Okay, now we can hear you. Hold on. Like,
you don't know that is not Roxy. You don't know that's not my palatial estate with my awesome piano skills in the background and fireplace.
This is very true. For those who are watching and listening right now, you have not seen anything until you have seen Rob at the dueling piano bar in Terre Haute. It is the most amazing thing.
Yes, it's quite entertaining. We'll just have to wait for some day that maybe I can show everybody.
It'll be in a video where it's showing you, and then it shoots over to someone else's hands.
Yeah, definitely. You never see the hand; you just see me.
Yeah, that's funny stuff. Well, welcome, dude. Welcome back. Always love having you on, and you and I have known each other since that first national conference back in 2014 as well. So this is going to be good. I'm excited, but I want to start with John and learn more about you. So, an introduction from you, please. What is your background?
So right now I live in Eastern North Carolina, and I'm a project manager for Carbine. And I started my career with Carbine back in October of last year. And prior to that, I'll go back 25 years. So in 1996, I joined the Colorado State Patrol. So I was still going to school full time as a college student, and I quit school to be a state trooper. And I had, from 1996 until I retired last year, I had all kinds of various experiences. I worked patrol. I was an FTO in the field. I was a IT operations manager for a while. I worked down at the state capitol and Capitol Security. So I had some experience down there with the legislature and the governor's office. And I was the IT operations manager for the state patrol for a while. Kind of came in and was part of some CAD upgrades, some RMS upgrades, rolling out some new MDC technology, things like that. So there was a lot of technology focus there in that part of my career. And then after that, I was a task force officer with DHS ICE for a while, doing immigration enforcement, and then doing human trafficking work with the FBI. After about 8 years of doing that, I decided that I needed to kind of downshift a little bit and focus on my family. So I went to work in our internal affairs department within the State Patrol, and I was a polygraph examiner. So if you have any polygraph questions, I'd be happy to answer those off air. I'm not going to talk about them on air, but if you have polygraph questions, I'm always up for a good polygraph question. But after internal affairs, I went back to our communications branch, and I was the project manager for our last CAD upgrade that the Colorado State Patrol did. And then I had the amazing opportunity to work with some awesome people. And I was the deputy director of emergency communications for the Colorado State Patrol. And we had 5 different call centers around the state. 3 of those were primary 911 PSAPs. 2 of them are soon to be secondary backup PSAPs. And then we had a emergency call center that was down at the state capitol. So we had 6 locations. 5 of them are fully staffed PSAPs. And that was a tremendous opportunity. And I want to give a shout out now that we're live to all the people in Colorado and the Colorado State Patrol that really helped make that such a rewarding experience for me. But just the incredible work that they do day in and day out in such a challenging atmosphere.
Oh man, that is amazing. Like you've got experience like that's awesome.
I could not have done any of this without the support of my family, my wife, and my kids. They did all of the things that I missed while I was working and going to school. During that whole time, I finished my bachelor's degree, and I just graduated in May with my master's degree in business.
Oh man, well, congratulations. I know how that can be. When you're working full time, also you got your family and everything, and then you're trying to go to school and stuff. I was the same way, being in dispatch, working 12, 16 hours and going through. And what is this?
I'm not laughing about your stories, but it's the comments from Love Ben.
Yeah, let me delete that there. Every so often there will be some trolls that come in that are really just bots. There'll be bots that end up coming in and stuff and add
Christ, that was funny.
crap comments. So I'm glad I have the ability to take that out of there. If that comes on again, person or bot, I'll have to ban you from it. Oh, there's always a troll, man. Sheesh. So either way, it was working 12 to 16 hours and I ended up getting 3 different degrees during that time, but man, it was something else. There wasn't a lot of sleep going on. I definitely understand, needing that support from family and friends and everything when you're going through it. Now, before we get to Rob here, I do have a quick question though. What were some of the things that you learned, or that you just found that was, I don't know, just maybe like great with the folks that you worked with, when you were deputy director and you had all those dispatchers and everything? Like, what were some of the things that you learned that maybe you didn't know before?
I think one of the really valuable things was it gave me an opportunity to see what it is that they experience and that they go through. When you're on the other side of the radio or the MDT out in the field, and you're actually driving and pushing a radiator up and down the highway, you're calling and you're asking for things and you need information. And sometimes there's a lot of frustration because you don't hear what you want to hear. But when I got a chance to come and work with all of the comm staff, those fabulous people in the communications branch, one of the things I learned was a lot of times they don't have that information. They don't know what the scene looks like. They don't know how many cars are involved. They don't know what the suspect look like. They just don't know. And for them, it's probably even more frustrating because they also want that information, but they want to, they have that added stress of wanting to give it to me. And I think it just gave me a greater appreciation of just sometimes how emotionally challenging and how the emotional pressure that a lot of our comm staff feel. And then you add in new technology, which is what we're going to talk about today. And that adds a whole nother layer of complexity, because with new technology, we always assume that we're going to have all of this greater clarity and things are going to work so much better. And sometimes there's a lot of a learning curve. There's a lot of kind of just changing your processes and changing your habits and routines, and those things are not easy. It really gave me an appreciation for what they deal with, and it helped me kind of act as a mediator between our comm staff and the troopers out on the road, and sometimes the other agencies that we dispatch for, just to kind of, we would get complaints from one side or the other, and it would help me mediate between the two and say, you have to understand all the things that these communication technicians and officers are doing, and you have to understand that sometimes they don't have immediate answers for you. So it just really helped. It really helped kind of bridge the gap and make them feel like they had an advocate.
Yeah, that is good, because I remember, and we'll get into this as well, but I remember being in dispatch during some of that technology that was coming in, because we had an old CAD system, like command line. It was a lot of command line stuff, and it was just black and green. There was nothing else. And when we were going through that whole process, nobody likes change, but also when you're not really told until the time that it comes up, then it's even worse. Especially if you have somebody in there who's teaching you, who has never done what you're doing before, then it makes it even more hard. And
Most
again,
definitely.
We'll get into that here in just a moment. Before we get to Rob here, getting attacked by like bots and everything, so I am blocking as many of them as I can. One of them popped on the screen there for a moment. But for some reason Facebook has been hitting me with some bots here in the comments. So I did put in there, if you have any questions for the panelists, please add them. So I wonder if that was a trigger for some of the bots for some of these crap comments to be coming in here. But I am trying to block as fast as I can, and if there are any others on there, well, we'll figure this out. So Rob,
You're doing a great job.
I'm trying. I got to multitask and everything. I got to bring back my dispatch skills. So Rob, your introduction, please.
I don't have anything to match John's. I mean,
how dare you?
I know. I'm executive director at Knox County, Indiana. I've been here for about 3 years. I'm going on my 24th year in public safety. And it's my third center. I've been past president of NENA, National Emergency Number Association, in 2018, and all that good stuff. Currently, I'd like to comment on your thoughts, or what you said about, John, how you said that it was different for you going from the road to the dispatch, to the communication side, because there's a whole new level of understanding that goes on there, and I can clearly appreciate the way you found that new opportunity and that new information, because it's way different. And until you get somebody that has either gone from dispatch to the road or from the road to dispatch, it's totally different. People don't understand that. And I'm sure that you were commented from your buddies that you were a troop with, and it's like, what the hell is going on in here? Why are they doing it like this? Why are they doing it like that? It's like, well, it's the way it's supposed to be. Well, that's not what we want. And so I understand that. Been there, done that, and I'm glad to hear that you say that, give the kudos to your folks, because that was great.
I was very fortunate to have some exceptional people to work with, because without them, we would have zero success anywhere. And Rob, your background is impressive, because you're still out there doing it. I retired and I work for Carbine now, and I am thrilled with the opportunity that Carbine's given me to continue my public service, just in a different way. But Rob, you're still out there doing it, and you're managing the staffing challenges, the technology challenges, the public perception, and all the liability challenges that are out there. So kudos to you, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So we're going to jump into this topic now. The keys to successfully rolling out new public safety technologies. And John, I want to start with you from your side, but also, kind of speaking from your previous experience. you've got this project management side as well, when we talk about implementing. So this is what I want to jump into from your side first, and then Rob, you can jump in as well. We'll both kind of jump in as he's explaining it and all, and then Rob, I want you to explain your side too. But John, what are some of those keys to successfully rolling out new public safety technologies, in your opinion, but also some of the ways that you all do it when you're talking to different centers and they're thinking about, or even actually going through and making this change? Because we all want to work together. We want to make sure that it is as seamless as possible, right? A smooth transition from one piece to the next, and sometimes there's some growing pains, right? So
Yes,
what are your thoughts?
I was really right before we did this. You sent over some of the comments from social media, and Mr. Flanagan from Pitkin County, some of the things that he talked about, and Miss Van Gertie. Those were things that, through hard knocks and making some mistakes along the way on smaller technology projects that I kind of learned. It's just that communication, communicate, and even at the risk of over communicating. It's so important that people feel like they understand where things are, where they're going, and that they have a grasp on where they've been, so that you can lay out that vision for them going forward. And I think that, I kind of wrote down like four steps or four keys, which really are kind of in all of these comments that we're going to talk about today. But I think the first thing that to any successful technology project or any successful endeavor that a PSAP manager is going to take on is leadership. And it's leadership at every level. I think that there's this perception that the PSAP manager has to be the only leader. And that's not the case. It's something that through all of the APCO and NINA and FBI LEDA training that we send all of these people to empower them and enrich them and make them better, it's that there's leadership at every level. If you're a brand new comm officer, you can lead. And if you're a supervisor, you can lead. You can lead up to your manager, and you can also lead down, and you can lead across to your peers. And I think that, every person needs to ask themselves, what can I do to make this project better, to help my boss, and to also help my peers? If you can answer those three questions, what can I do to make things better? You're going to set your manager up for success. You're going to set your peers and your center up for success. And there's a higher likelihood of a better successful outcome for that project too, especially with new technology.
I think one of the best things too is that a lot of you come from public safety. You don't just come from the tech side. So let me tell you something here really quick, and then I want to see your response, either one of you. But when I first started working for the company that I was with before I went on my own, I was up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I was going to train them on a new backup phone system. And so I'm in there, and this is a state police post, and I'm downstairs in the basement with all of their dispatchers. And I get up front and I say who I am and who I'm with, but then I say immediately after that, before this, I was a 911 dispatcher and on the line supervisor for 13 and a half years before this. And one of them ends up going, I am so glad you said that, because if you were just some technology guy who's coming in trying to tell us how to do our job, you would not have ever made it out of here alive. and I was like, okay, all right, well, I'm glad. And they said, you get it, right? Because you come from where we come from, so we can relate, and you're going to be able to teach us in a way that we can really understand, and you're not trying to tell us how to do our job and not knowing how to do it. So what are your thoughts on that when you're coming in and you're doing project management for different projects and in different centers, implementing new technology? That's just one thing, and it's a major thing too. It might seem small, but it's a major thing to bring someone in to help this transition who knows where they're coming from.
Yeah, it's interesting because no agency is the same. We have, a lot of us come from public safety backgrounds, and we have fire service dispatch communication. I think I'm the only law enforcement person that works at Carbine, but we have some of that public safety background, but there is no analog for every agency. There is no comparison between any of the customers. New Orleans Parish, the Rio Grande Council of Governments, all the companies agencies, wow, that you saw in the intro. None of them are the same. They're all different, but they do have a couple things that are the same. Is they have leaders who are finding a technology challenge that they're trying to fill the gap and improve service for not only their communities, but to also make their job better for their employees and make them more efficient. And I think that understanding where, kind of having some empathy for where they're at and what they're going through, helps me kind of predict and be proactive and offer things to them. Say, I'm looking at your operation, and this is something that I had to deal with before that was similar. And maybe this is something that you can talk about, or maybe this is something you can use, or maybe this is a tactic that this one of your supervisors who looks like they're really chomping at the bit to help you out. Maybe that's something that they can help you with. And as a project manager, that's my job, is to be proactive and to look at ways to help mitigate risks and to also make projects successful before problems arise. And so having that mix of now working with Carbine and before working with the state of Colorado and the state patrol, it gives me a chance to really partner with those PSAT managers and our project champions to help it become more successful. And I think that it lends a lot of credibility to the product, but it also lends a lot of credibility to our relationship that we build with each of our customers. And it makes that bond a lot closer. And if I can help that champion and that PSAT manager or that supervisor all the way down to the first comm officer, if I can help them be successful and to build confidence and competence in what they do, but also confidence in their leadership, then I think that that's a value add.
Well, I'm ready to buy. So no, in all seriousness, though, I understand completely. And the reason I cracked that, not really a joke, like kind of serious too, in the fact that if I am a director, who's looking to implement new technology, and I'm bringing people in, before I decide, that's something that I would be listening to. I would be listening to the folks, how they portray themselves, I guess the complete perception and everything of what it is that you bring to the table, why it is that you're doing it, not just what, but why you do this. And I can tell, listening to you, that you want to make sure that everyone has what they need and that the transition is going to work well. If I'm listening to you and you're coming in, or anybody else is coming in, because I'm trying to choose, right, between which company to go with, and someone is just kind of talking to me, oh, it'll be easy, it'll just be, a few months. We're going to come in, we're going to teach you, and, we're going to do this. Don't worry about it. And if that was it that someone was telling me, not really getting into the meat of it or speaking with kind of that passion that you were just now, man, I'm not going to bring you in. I'm not going to have that coming in, because you don't exactly care, right? Not you specifically. I mean, another person, if they were just coming in and just talking or whatever, I want someone who's actually going to care about this transition and how, not myself, but how my folks, how my team, how my crew is going to be working with this and learning it, because they are the ones who are going to be using it. And if they are not happy, then that's not going to work for me. So
yeah, you just can't overlook the fact that any type of change is difficult. Any type of change is really difficult. And that's where, communicating, keeping everyone in the loop, thinking globally as a manager, thinking globally about how does this impact me and the statistical reporting and the operational things that I have to keep track of and I'm responsible for. But how does this impact my supervisors? How does this impact the whole team's well-being? How does this impact our agency and our department as a whole? Because a lot of times, technology gets put into one place, and it might, change a KPI. It might change an indicator that we're looking at, call time, time to dispatch, something like that. And that might be a negative impact on the center, but as an agency as a whole, it improves response time, it improves arrests, it improves things like that. So those are things that leaders have to think about, and it really helps them in that change. And then, really be honest with the trade-offs. Anytime you add something new into your routine, Rob, you know this, anytime you add a new piece of technology, or there's a new form that needs to be filled out, or there's a new call type that gets added to your CAD system, it increases your times. It does. It increases things. And, if we're honest with our staff about that, and we're honest with our customers about that, it builds a lot more credibility, and it builds a better relationship. And those are things that when you go into change, you say, it's super easy. This is going to be no problem. The dispatcher, the end user, the one that's actually sitting there at the keyboard on the headset doing the work, is going to go, yeah, that's easy for you to say because you're not sitting in my seat right now, or you're not sitting in my seat next week. And I think that we have to be really honest with people about, look, this is going to take you maybe a couple weeks to get used to adding this one new call classification or dispo code into your workflow, or clicking on the link to send the Responder Connect link out to your first responders from our product. Those things take time, and being honest with people about that, I think, just really builds credibility, and it helps gather and garner that buy-in from the staff, and it just makes things a whole lot easier.
Go ahead, Rob.
Definitely. Those who know me know that I'm a straight shooter, and I will tell you straight off the bat if you're bullshitting me or if this is what it's going to be. And everything that you're saying is the way it should be. Now, you have a lot of sales folks or your people that come in to try to get you your business that are only there to get their money, and that's all they care about. You say, yeah, it's only going to take a couple weeks. It's only going to take a couple months to do this implementation. Well, we all know that that's not right. Right now, I'm going through implementation of additional EFD and EPD dispatch protocols, implementing those. So, when I started this, when I started it last fall, thinking, okay, it's not going to be that big a deal. We have a little bit to do. Well, when you start the kickoff meetings and everything else, like, okay, here's we started those in January or February, and then it's like, okay, well, your go live date is going to be August. I'm like, what the hell are we waiting so long for? And then I get, remember that I get into it. It's like, oh my God, there's so much that you have to do. And it's not just doing that. And the dispatchers have to have that buy-in. You understand, okay, guys, this is going to be a long, tedious process. It's not going to happen today. We're going to have to go through, I have to do a lot of stuff on the back end. We have to go through training. We have to go through this and do all that stuff. And then finally, it's like, okay, here we're getting to it. Yeah. Are there going to be bumps and bruises? When I walked in at 6 o'clock this morning, that people were like, oh, they were having, talking about doing EMD and protocols overnight. It's like, well, how come it does this and does that? It's like, well, you guys have to realize this is new for everybody. They've always done EMD, but now adding the fire and the police to it as well, and this newer technology this way, it's not easy. There's change. We all hate change, which is fine, but it's changed for the better. When I took over this job down here in 2019, they had hardly any technology. It was CAD and radio was about all they had, and no training. So I'm coming in and like, what can we do to make these guys' jobs easier? I mean, and that's for me, when I look at bringing in new technology for our folks, it's not always about, well, it's about wanting to be the first in the county, the state. I like to be number one, and I like to have, I'm a very technologically advanced person, and there's another person in the state that we seem to go back and forth on being the first in the county, not the first in the county, but the first in the state to do stuff. But that's what I like, and that's how it is. But it's not always about that. It's like, what can I do to make my folks' jobs easier? What can they do? If I can provide them, before I come in, they had no clue what Rapid SOS was or anything else. Some of the other CAD vendors that we can interface off of and do some different things, they had no clue what that stuff was. And it's technology to bring them, to help them, Smart 901 and our Q-Hit, the Q-Hit survey project that I'm doing, and just different things like that to build morale and to make their jobs easier, to get them recognized.
I think that's one of those biggest things as well is the morale piece, but also building that confidence. Because going back to the implementation that I was talking about with the switching to the new CAD, I remember sitting in that room, and it was, again, we were told that it was coming, but it wasn't like an exact date or anything. It was just, well, we're going to be doing this soon. And then when it happened, I'm pretty, if I remember correctly, we were pretty short staffed as it was. I mean, everybody's short staffed, but we were like really, really bad. So take that with the county politics and just so much stuff that was going on during that time. Um, that buy-in, just all of that. We were not involved in some of that process of looking at different things. It was just, this is what you get, this is what's going to happen. The only good thing, though, was that that system that was coming in was still going to have a similar command line to the one that we had previously, which was good because we all had all of the codes, just everything memorized, so that we could do it fast and go and go and go and go. But when you get in there and morale is down and you don't fully have that buy-in right away, there's a lot that goes into that, and then people aren't paying attention, and then it's pretty much like a class of jokesters being in there with the person who's trying to teach us stuff, but it's just not working. And then when they finally implemented everything, it was hard for us to use it because like not all the updates were there. So it made it even slower. So everything that we had learned was almost null because it wasn't working. So then we're all pissed off because, we're typing as fast as we can, right? But then we have to wait so that everything can catch up to us. And then by that time, everything that the person has said, now we're behind and we're trying to type and type and type and type. So that the confidence, building the confidence and the buy-in, just all of that is, I think is just, one of the main keys there. Those are the main keys.
Yeah. And, you guys are talking about new technology coming in, and, people are asking like, why doesn't this work? Or how does that work? And you think about in public safety as a whole, and not just in law enforcement or not just in communications, but you think about how do we train people? We train people through stress inoculation. We train them through, repetitive actions for worst case scenarios, which kind of ingrains into us this catastrophic thinking where every 911 call could be a mass shooting, whether it's a school mass shooting or a public something like that, or a mass casualty event, or it could be someone who's fallen and they can't get up. And we don't always train for the mundane or the typical. We always train for the low frequency, high liability incident. And when you introduce a new technology, because we train that way so often, and we have to, we as leaders and project managers and peers, we miss the opportunity to point out how things work on the day-to-day. Like, look, this new piece of technology may help us catch a porch pirate that's been ravaging a neighborhood and stealing every Christmas package, Grinch around Christmas.
Yeah.
As well as giving us real boots on the ground, tacit information from a really important critical incident. You look at all of the things that have happened with, there was a train derailment just this week out in Missouri, and there were some casualties and there were a bunch of injuries. And some of the pictures that people were seeing on the news were live video from people that were on scene. Think of how valuable that would have been to a first responder who had that video to actually get a picture of, okay, the train is derailed and it's off on the left side of the track. I don't know which direction it's going. It's off on the left side of the track.
Right.
That's an important thing because that's blocking a road that I would have used to access that. Versus, or this person's trapped and I need more than just a fire rescue truck, brush truck to go put out a fire. I need a heavy equipment truck to come extricate somebody. these are the things that technology helps us, but it's also, those are the great use cases that kind of will overall reduce some of that stress for our folks that are in these comm centers, because if you don't see something, your mind will fill in the gaps and it will bring up the worst case scenario. That's something I learned in polygraph schools about, how our minds work and kind of like how we form thoughts and we form memories. And without that visual cue, you will fill in the gaps and you will automatically think of the worst case scenario, because that is historically how we train people. And I think that's just, there's a lot of advantage there. And I think, overall general wellness and well-being of our staff and supporting them, allowing them to see video or have that, I think two things. It gets us a lot closer to solidifying that first responder protective service class that they're fighting for. But also, I think overall it can reduce their internal stress level, because now they actually see what is happening. They can provide much better, much more clear information to people. And that's video. That's just one component. And that's part of the Carpine Universe and Apex product. But just technology as a whole, I think, leaders, we can do such a great job in leading this change and bringing this in if we show this is the day-to-day use case, the high frequency, low liability success story that you're bound and determined to have, and prepare them for that low frequency, high liability event as well.
Now, Rob, in reference to everything that John has just said here, I want to get your opinion on this as well. My thought is that some of these use cases, John, that you mentioned, these can be used during the beginning of this process for that buy-in, right? You can definitely use it for the buy-in to be able to let people know, look, I know you don't want this change. I know that change sucks. However, let's think about some of these incidents. Let's think about, and then use case and mention it, talk about it, show it, whichever. And that, for me specifically, if I think back when I was in dispatch, if that is how that new tech would have been promoted to us or brought up, I would have thought, hell yeah, well, let's do it. If it's going to help me do this and that, I'm there. Let's do this. Versus, hey, you need to be at such and such room at 2 p.m. because you're going to learn about this new thing that we're going to do, whether you like it or not.
And like John said, was talking about that train derailment in Missouri. I mean, that's great. That's fresh with a lot of my folks here in my center, because we've all just completed our EFD certification. So you're thinking, okay, this train has derailed on the, you got video. Okay, it's on the left side, on the right side. Okay, so now we're going to have to figure out how we're going to get. We don't necessarily, if this train is 2 mile long and it's on the left side, we can't exactly pull people up out of the train and across the tracks and go, try to put them in an ambulance that's coming in on the right side of it. We can't do that. So we have to see, okay, where it's at and look for technology ways, whether it be in mapping or AVL or whatever it may be, to see, okay, where's the closest intersection to or crossing that I can get around this, or how I can get into to butt up right next to the train to offload these patients that we may need. Or I saw that they were bringing in 8 or 10 helicopters from all across the state the other day for this, and that's classic information to have there too, because they probably couldn't get some of their responders to get across the track and some of these critical patients, so they had to bring them off onto helicopters because it was easier to get them loaded and get closer to it. So if you have these real life cases like John said, this is what it is, it's much easier to get your folks to buy in on this technology. Okay, this is why we're going to do this, and that's what I think all of us as directors, or most of us, try to do, is here's the reason why we're going to do this. Yeah, we're going to have growing pains, but in the long run, it's going to make things so much easier. Upgrading your CAD from a DOS-based CAD to a Windows-based CAD, everybody's going to hate that, or that they love the command line. Well, a command line CAD is like archaic, and people do that. But now people you get the younger people that are trying to work on a CAD and that don't understand the command line that you had, Code 7 boy. So they don't go to command line, so everybody is point and click with the mouse. So you get that, and okay, yeah, it's gonna be some change at the beginning, but this is going to help us in the future. When I went from a hosted CAD to an on-premise CAD, it's like they go, and it took a while to implement that. It's like, well, how come we're doing this? Why are we doing that? It's like, well, because if you think about it, when our CAD was going down or we're losing connection and we were going to disabled operations 7 to 8 times a day because of internet connection between here and our host in Indianapolis, that's not conducive to us. So I have to have new technology, better ways to where I have now an on-premise system because it's not cloud-based. So I understand that. But it's got to be hosted, or it's got to be an on-premise system. So therefore, we're not traveling through data going from here to Indianapolis. Why it seems like it's not that big a deal through data, but it still takes, how many hops does it have to take here to here to here to here to here, and how many cuts is there that can do that? But we have to, you just try to get that information through there. It's like, this is why we're going to do this. It's not just because I want to have the latest and greatest. Well, maybe it is, but it's also got to be for functionality and to do things in the long run.
What are some of the other things, Rob, that you do to kind of prepare your folks when it comes to new technology? We talked about this buy-in and everything already, but what are some of the other things that you do to get them ready?
Usually what we'll do is I can't say that I always include them on everything. I have a smaller staff, and of course, with a small staff, they're busy doing other things, and I can't get them away to do to look at things or whatever, but we try to get them to go to conferences to look at technology, to look at things that we may need. But as I'm looking at things, I will push out, I'll explain to them what's going on. Hey, check out this website, check out this video, see what we do. And then just kind of, talk to them and get their feedback and see, hey, is this something we possibly would need? Some things I like to do that doesn't really, as much things that we can do in the background, so they don't really have to do anything with it towards new training that they have to see. It just automatically comes into it and it just is presented to them. I like to have that too. But if it's something that we're looking to, to adopt, or it's pretty big technology, then we talk about it and I discuss it and get their feedback and see what they think about it. Sometimes we can do that. Sometimes we can. We have the luxury, sometimes we have that luxury to really push it out. And sometimes we can't do that, because if you leave it to your staff, if you have a large group, like at the State Patrol, where you have a huge amount of dispatchers, you can kind of pick and choose your CTOs or your supervisors to do that. I have a staff of 12. So, it's not a huge staff to be able to do a lot of that. And then you have them that nobody's going to ever agree on what you want to do because they don't want to change. You've got your 3-month dispatcher that's like, yeah, I don't care, whatever, just bring it at me. And then you've got your 13 to 20, 25-year dispatcher that's like, oh, I don't want to do anything else. All I want to do is come in Monday through Friday, take my calls, and go home. They don't want to have to deal with anything else. So you have to pick where you want to go.
Right. It's funny though, some of the more seasoned ones are the ones that sometimes surprise you. And just for example, when I was working with the other company, I had traveled down to West Virginia, and we were there, and I was training their entire staff on the text for 911 platform. Excuse me. And I remember the training coordinator at the time. I'm not sure if this person is still there or not, because it was a while ago. But I remember this person just kind of pulled me to the side and chuckled a little bit and said, "I'm not sure how this is going to work for you." And I thought, okay, what do you mean? And he goes, I think, the younger generation that's here, because everyone, is texting and stuff, they're going to love this even more. But, the more seasoned folks that we have, they don't like change, man. They might, you're going to have to really work with them. I was like, okay, well, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And in fact, it was reversed. it was the younger generation that was there that was like, nah, I don't really like this. I don't know if I want to do this. And they were kind of nervous that there was going to be so many, just like prank callers and everything else, that it was going to be the same thing with texting. And the more seasoned folks, they were loving it. They were laughing and having fun with it. And I'm standing there as I'm teaching them this, and they're having such a good time. I remember looking at the training quarter, and he just goes, "Well, I don't know." But it's different. Sometimes you'll be surprised,
Not
but
very
that's
often,
good.
but there is times where you get the crusty experience, folks. It's like, this is cool. I get this, and other times it's like, no, I hate this. This sucks.
Yeah, and I'm sure, John, you kind of found that in your experience as well. Then,
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of times those people that you think are going to be the tough nut to crack actually are the ones that will help you crack into the group,
Yeah.
and they will. And I think you just have to be open to that and be ready to do that. And I think that just being open and honest with people, Rob, just like you were talking about, just tell them, say, look, this is going to be difficult. There will be a learning curve. This is, you're going to see, there will be mistakes. One of the things that was brought up in the social media comments that we were talking about prior to this was that, look, there's going to be bumps in the road. There will be mistakes. There is a learning curve. And, I think that the folks that work in communication centers, and Rob, especially in your center, they have a very high standard for themselves. And because they have that very high standard and they understand the intensely important job that they do, they are very, very afraid of failure.
Exactly. They don't like to fail.
Because to them, failure is someone getting hurt, a call being missed, a warrant not getting entered correctly, and then someone gets hurt in a follow-up domestic. I mean, those are all of those worst case scenarios that play into that real high level of anxiety that a lot of the staff have. And I think that, if you can harness that, and as a project manager coming in, and, our customer success managers who are training these folks, they understand it's like, look, you're not going to do it right the first time every time. And that's why we train, and that's why we do these things, and to have a little bit of a sense of humor. And I know that sometimes within communications and law enforcement and public safety, our sense of humor can be a little dark, and that can be a little off-putting to people. But I think that, understanding that these are human beings that we are and they are, and you have a little empathy for them and training them that, you can bring that anxiety down, and it can really help you out.
It's funny that you talk about we're kind of scared of failure. So this really isn't technology, but tomorrow night at midnight, we switch over to a new EMS provider in our county that we've been working on for the last several months. So we're getting ready. That goes into tomorrow night at midnight. We had our open house for it, or the ribbon cutting yesterday. It's like, everything's good. And I'm like, I am nervous as hell for, not right now, but for tomorrow night, Thursday night, 11:55 p.m. It's like, why? So what's going to happen? So I don't know. Anything can happen. This weekend, we had a Frontier and a Verizon outage that took out 8 PSAPs in southern Indiana. So, and that was out for 36 hours. Luckily we had our backups, our Mevo system, to where it works seamlessly like it should. Thank you, in digital. But that's how that goes. But I'm worried that, and I'll be here tomorrow night at midnight for this to go live, just because. And the EMS director's like, Rob, don't worry about it. What's the worst that could happen? I'm like, radio failures, technology failures. This, we don't get everything that, and that's, it's highly unlikely that that's going to happen, but that's on my head because that's a failure. So therefore, we've been dealing with this for the last several months, trying to get up to it. Now's the D-Day, and I'm like, what aren't we ready for? What can happen, and how is this going to make us look like shit? Because everything's not going to work right, and it's going to be, well, how come you didn't do this, and how come you did that? It's the failure. Don't like the failure.
Yeah. So I added what you said into the comments here of what's the worst that could happen. Dude, that's like tempting fate right there.
Right.
That's
Right.
like saying the Q word in dispatch, and everything, goes to hell. So my thoughts will be with you
Yeah, thanks.
tomorrow at
I'm sure
at
you'll be
that
awake.
time.
I'll probably call you.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'll be awake, dude. You can call me. but yeah, I mean that's definitely like the tempting fate there and everything. And it's that the way you were saying it, it was almost like Y2K, if you remember back when
Yeah.
everybody was freaking out.
Right.
Are all the computers going to quit? Is all the CAD going to shut down? Will the
Oh,
radios work tomorrow? Yeah.
Yes.
exactly. Was in dispatch at that time too, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
what are we gonna do? It's like, oh my god, everything's gonna blow up. But that's like the way I feel tomorrow night. It's like, oh my god, there's so much left to do, but I can't do anything. And it's like, well,
Hey,
why are you going to be there? It's like, well, I'm going to make sure that we got to make sure radios work correctly, like they already are. Then I got to make sure the case numbers roll over, CAD works correctly, locate. It's like, oh, there's just a lot to do.
Rob, I can tell you, and it may not help you sleep better, but I can tell you the worst thing that could happen is that you didn't think about those things, that you're not going to be there tomorrow night, and you're not going to be the person to project calm into your center. So that's the worst thing that could happen. So by doing all those things and being proactive, you're ensuring that things will go well.
Well, I appreciate that. I loaded shit up in the CAD, like the units and everything up in the CAD. Like as soon as we started doing this, I'm like, I've got to get this stuff done now while I'm thinking about it, because if not, I don't want to be doing it at 11:59 because I'm going to forget about it and be like, oh shit, what did I do?
Right. Yeah. Then it's gonna be all chaotic. It'll be chaos anyway. So I want to go through some of these comments here, and we can discuss a little bit. But we've only got a few minutes left here because we've basically gone through some of these already. We were touching on them, going back and forth. And I know these first few, we did touch on them, but I just want to read them here because there were some good ones. This first one that I had put on there was give your staff the time to absorb the coming change. Really big there. Yes, provide the background of why you are adding a new technology and illustrate the benefits of the new technology. Provide a timeline. That even more so, the timeline. I am big on timelines. Like if something is coming up, you need to give me a timeline because I need to know how this is going to work out. And a lot of dispatchers are anal like that. Like they need that. They need that information. The good pre-live training and a grace period while staff are building their skill set. So I think that was one of the things that was hard for us too, because when we were going through this implementation of new CAD system, we were in there for a week. So like one half of the staff was in there for a week doing this, and the other half is in for the following week. And then we had one terminal, if I remember correctly, one terminal that was set up for us to go sit at and test, but it wasn't working. So it wasn't working that well, and I don't remember why. But then it came to go live time, and everyone is just on pins and needles. I mean, literally just eggshells, because we were freaking out that this might not work, that we didn't have enough time. We didn't have, like this one says here, that grace period. And then there was an addition to this comment as well that said, I would like to add and say that acknowledge up front that there will be stumbles, like you guys were saying already. And this says stumbles and mumbles along the way in deployment, setting the expectation in advance that everyone needs to have patience with the process is very helpful. And I think that's just another thing, telling everyone. But see, that's hard too, right? Because we don't always have that much patience. But we just want it to work. But we have to continue to work with our folks and let them know, again, this is going to be a process. We got to keep going. Another one here, I think this one was from Roxy, actually. This next one that just says open dialogue. I think sometimes in the race to be first and be the most innovative and tech savvy, we forget to really engage our staff. Talk about it. Show them how it works, dispel any rumors, give them space to express their concerns privately or publicly, and if you move forward, have them be engaged in the process. I would say those are some really good ones right there.
Mm-hmm.
There was an addition to this that says, I would like to echo what Roxy had said, and the person says communication is key, but specifically from the seat that this person sits in, and this person says, well, I may procure the technology, but I don't necessarily use it. I like to ask the following: is this technology needed? Does this technology solve an existing problem? Does this technology take away any current functionality? And does this technology integrate seamlessly with actual operations?
And that's a lot of it. I'm like that person. I procure the technology, but I don't use it because I'm not a frontline dispatcher.
Mm-hmm.
I sit back here, and it's true. Is this technology needed? Yeah. Why we all like to have the shiny new objects and stuff like that, but is there things that I could do without right now? Well, yeah, there probably are, but there's other things that I've had some demos, and I'm like, you know what? I'm already doing this with another piece of software, and I've got too much stuff going on my plate right now. I've got EFD implementation, EPD implementation, a new EMS system. It's like this doesn't do anything really extra that I'm already getting done with software that I already have. So it's not necessarily needed. Just because it's cool and shiny and it's out there doesn't mean that I have to have it. And they said, does it solve an existing problem? Well, I think a lot of technology solves existing problems because that's why the technology comes out. There's a problem there. Is it, what I look at, is this going to make my staff, one, the morale go up like we talked about earlier, and is it going to make their job easier? With the, some of the automatic notifications that go out through the CAT. Yeah, that helps because that keeps the fire department from calling in and asking for times, from when they're doing that. Okay, all they have to do is look at their software, their app that they've received, and say, okay, here's all your notification time. So you don't have to worry, you don't have to call dispatch. That makes their job easier. Plus, they can see as they're driving to, or they're, on the way to a call, they can see some additional information. But then they don't have to call dispatch when they get back to the station, and don't have to bother dispatch. Not necessarily bother, but they don't have to worry about, okay, we don't have this information. So yes, is it needed? Is it there? So we try to get things that are needed and to help them. It doesn't always happen that way, but I think the majority of us directors try that. I know there's some that don't, but we try to do that. And then there's some directors that are set in their ways and they're not going to change anything. They're just, they don't use it, they don't care, and they don't understand how it goes.
What are your thoughts, John?
I think listening to what Rob's saying, those are all the things that I was thinking about when I was in a similar position. And I think another layer of complexity now is you have to start thinking about continuity of operations. So, one of the things I had a lot of coffee, I drank a lot of coffee talking to my boss, going over things about continuity of operations, because that was part of my responsibility, was how are we going to go forward should we have some type of event where we have to evacuate one of our PSAPs. And before we could even finish those conversations, we had an event at one of our PSAPs where we had to do some environmental mitigation work. We had to shut it down, evacuate the center, and we had to, within, I think it was about 13 or 14 days, we had to stand up a backup center because we were sending people traveling to other 911 centers around us so that we could forward our calls and disperse that work. And that's how important continuity of operations is. And so technology, it's great. It's awesome. It makes us much more efficient in a lot of ways. But now there's that new layer of, does this technology have the ability to be transportable or portable to another location without all new infrastructure? Can I go to someplace that's not owned by the city, county, state, and stand up operations? Can I do that with just a regular internet connection, or do I have to have all these different firewalls and endpoints and VPN tunneling and extended networks and things like that? That's just a whole nother layer of complexity for all of these PSAP managers and technology managers that they're having to deal with. And those are things that, add a whole new layer of anxiety for the manager, but also the staff, because they're like, hey, this is great. I wouldn't know what to do with myself if I didn't have this technology. Oh, well, there's a forest fire, and it took out all of the internet connectivity to your building. So now you have to go to someplace on the other side of the county and work there, and none of this technology exists there. So that's a whole level of anxiety for your staff that is there too. So, that's just another layer of complexity that we're seeing today.
That was on my mind constantly in late 2000 and early 2001 with COVID. I mean, because at any time, at the initial part of COVID, my staff wasn't really affected too bad. But the end of 2020, from like the 15th of November through the 15th of December, all 12 of my folks come down with COVID at different times. So I'm like, what the hell? How are we going to do this? And luckily we had people that were going into quarantine and coming off of quarantine at the same times and trying to push these people to get back. It's like, okay, how many hours was that? How many days? It's like, okay, so this is your 10 days. You've done this. Okay, you're back. How close were you? Like, oh, I was exposed to them, but it wasn't, I was only there for like 5 minutes and we were 20 feet apart. It's like, boom, you're good. Let's go. You are not getting the time off. Sorry. But we were, I had the backup Mevo system that Digital offers. So at any time, I could have taken our crash cart and gone to, I would have just had to have an internet connection, or actually I wouldn't even have to have that because it can run off a SIM card. So I could have gone to a volunteer fire department or broken it up into 2 volunteer fire departments across the county to do that. Luckily, we didn't have to, but that was a constant thing. Every morning you'd get up and it's like, okay, yeah, it's not a wildfire. It's not anything like this. This is a pandemic. And that put all of the anxiety on a lot of us to reach out for new technology and new ways to do things. And Zoom and all the other online features to get people to working from home because they don't have to. And now we've seen that, yes, that's kind of a common practice, that there's a lot of places that are trying to do that and getting through that. We could do it if we needed to be. Would we not? We would have all the creature comforts at home? No, but we could get by. You could have a very rudimentary call center from your house if you needed to be, with routing calls. It's there. It adds to that anxiety that we already have, and that's why I have all my hair off, because
it's all down here instead.
All down here, right.
There's a comment here that I want to read and get your both of you. So it says, the issue I see as a 27-year veteran is the new people are so reliant on technology that when the CAD goes down, they have no idea what to send, how to send them, or even the area of town the call is in. And so before the both of you jump in, I want to say something really quick. Just when I was in dispatch, I remember some of the newer folks that were coming in. It was kind of like this, the same scenario, and our system did go down. And I remember them looking at me as I'm the supervisor who's on at the time, and they said, "So, Ricardo, what do we do?" And I said, "So you've got this and this, right? Like, this is what you have to do." And they said, "No, for real?" And I said, "Yes, everything that is said, your times, you need to write it down so that when the system comes up, we can add it all in." Like, isn't there an easier way? Like, this is the way.
That's the way to do it. And unfortunately, to those responders out there, they're going to have to realize they're not going to have those comforts either of recommendations and getting your call for service immediately pushed to your push to your MDT or all that stuff. It's like, okay, guys, we're back to Stone Age. We're back to 20 years ago, or some places 5 years ago, or whatever it is. And
right.
We're not going to be able to send you a lineup of, okay, you want an engine, a ladder, and rescue. You're going to get, okay, station or fire department, you need to respond to this, and you're going to have to know your job and not rely on the dispatch to do it. This is where you have to, you've got to know your area to do it yourself.
For sure.
It happens. It does. It happens. We don't like it, but it does.
Well, going into the wrap up of this episode, of this live broadcast, round 30 of the Dispatchers Roundtable, it's been awesome to have the both of you on here. I want to close this off with just some closing advice or statements or anything when it comes to implementing new technology, some of those keys to successfully doing this. Rob, let's start with you, and then we'll go with John.
Get your buy-in from your folks. Make sure it's feasible, cost-effective, and that you need the technology.
Excellent. John?
My advice would be to, PSAP directors, PSAP managers, technology leaders is never miss an opportunity to coach and mentor your junior leaders, because at some point they are the ones that are going to be at 2:00 in the morning there with the other staff, helping them implement your direction. But also they are the new you in another 5 to 7 years. And so never miss that opportunity to coach and mentor your junior leaders and foster that.
Perfect. Thank you again, both of you, very much. John, how can people get a hold of you if they have any questions, or to find more about Carbine, whether it be social media or website?
Carbine.com is our website. We're a sponsor. You can find us all over the place for this website. Actually, in the comments, I don't think I can put it in there, but I'm on LinkedIn. So you can search for Jonathan Oliver on LinkedIn. You can find me there. Please message me. I am happy to talk to you about anything in my history. If you want to hear great polygraph stories, I can talk about that all day long. Those are great things that I love to reminisce about and tell sea stories, as my old boss would say. But also, if you want to ask questions about leading through change and leading through these technology implementations, please look me up on LinkedIn. It's Jonathan Oliver, and you can find me on LinkedIn there. I'm sorry, I don't really do Facebook. I'm more of a LinkedIn guy myself, and I think that's just too many years in law enforcement. I'm not a real fan of social media.
Perfect.
And if you get the John Oliver on HBO, that's not the right guy.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. You will know definitely, because it says that I work at Carbine. So you'll know you got me, and it's got a big picture of my mug on the front of it. So yep, that's me.
You've not secretly been running Ricardo and I through polygraph, have you?
No.
I've seen you look down a couple of times. You're not like typing out cues or some thoughts. You're like, this guy's
it's like watching our eyes and stuff.
Exactly.
It's my notes. I'm just looking at my notes.
That's funny. I didn't even think about that. Like, yep. It's like he's been staring at our eyes the whole time.
He's like,
he's looking at different facial.
Exactly. He's like, I know he's lying to us.
Oh, that's hilarious. Rob, how can people find you?
Well, I'm all over Facebook. You can Google me. You can find me on some of your other podcasts, but my email is rmcmullen@knoxcounty.in.gov. So I'm there. You can find me if you need to. Reach out to Ricardo. He knows how to get a hold of me.
This is true. Well, thank you both once again, and I'll be right back here with the both of you in just one moment. So for those who are watching, if you have any comments, questions, or you have maybe a topic that you want to see discussed, or even join in being a panelist or anything, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches Podcast. This live broadcast of the DRT has been sponsored by Digital Rapid Deploy as well as Carbine, and this was an exclusive Carbine DRT episode. Thank you so very much. Also, for patrons out there, thank you for everything, patrons. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without all of you, but also all of you who are currently watching and sharing, supporting all of it. Thank you so very much. Also, a perk for patrons only is you get audio versions of the DRT as well as Open Mic Live. So if you want to be a patron and help support us, you can check us out, patreon.com/WTT podcast. This can be seen on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, as well as Twitter. And then for the flagship show Within the Trenches podcast, you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.